Hello friends, and welcome to the Nature Wanderer podcast. I'm Paul, your host, and today I am in the wilds of my own backyard. Yeah, we're headed out. You may hear the crunching of the snow under my feet. We're going to do a little bit of tracking today, what I like to call the art of tracking. Now, I always consider it an art form because I look at tracking as an art form. I don't like to just try to figure out, hey, who made those tracks? I mean, that's interesting, that's fascinating, I love doing that, but I also like to tell the story behind the track, see what the story is behind the track. Not just who made the tracks, but what were they doing? Where'd they come from? Where'd they go? You know, were they after some food? Were they just wandering through the woods? What were they doing? What were they up to? So that's why I consider it kind of an art form. Trying to figure out what all the information is about the tracks. So today I'm out, like I said, in my own yard here, and I'm actually looking at some tracks right now. I'm in my woods, and pretty interesting tracks. It's afternoon, so I'll get back to those tracks in a little while. I'll see more of them because there's plenty of them around. I'm often asked, when is the best time to go tracking? Well, the best time is either early in the day or late in the day. You want the sun low on the horizon. I mean, you can track in the middle of the day, you can track in the middle of the night if you want, as long as you have a flashlight, but the best times, in my opinion, is early morning, late afternoon. You want to get it so that the sun is low on the horizon so that it can pick up shadows. I mean, the track is an indentation, and if it's low on the horizon, it's picking up the shadows that are going across the track, so it's easier to see the track. It's much easier to also take pictures of the track too if you're trying to document what you're finding. So those are the best times of day to do tracking. Now, speaking of time, when's the best time of year to do some tracking? Well, right now it's springtime, well, late winter, early spring, if you want to put it that way. So we do have a little bit of snow still on the ground. We're starting to get warmer temperatures. So it is starting to thaw a little bit. And the sound you may hear running through the woods every once in a while, I've got my trusty companion Rivia with me, and she's exploring a little bit, and she loves running past me every once in a while. But so winter time, early spring, sometimes in the fall, those are usually the best time of year. Also, if you have a wet summer, then it's great too. Sorry, I'm hearing the birds calling. So wet summer is also a good time. What you want is impression into something. So you want to have snow that you can see the impressions in. You want a mud to see the impressions in. So that's why I said winter, spring, those are the best times to go tracking. But you can go in the summer. It's just much harder in the summertime to see what the tracks are. So those are the best times of year, best times of day to go tracking. Now I am coming across an area, you may hear the creek in the background. I've got a creek running through my woods here, and I'm going to stop here because I have a bridge that goes across the creek. Now creeks are usually a good place to spot wildlife tracks. And the reason is they come down here for a drink. Now this is an open creek. It doesn't usually freeze over in the winter time. My pond this is actually the drainage from my pond on my property, and it goes over into my neighbor's woods. But this was a natural creek when I first moved in here and before we had the pond. Then when we built the pond, we figured, hey, what a great place to put it. It's right on natural flow of the property. I caught the water coming down, and anyhow, so there is a creek here. Wildlife needs a place to drink. So they come to the pond, they come to the creek. This is the water source for them. So you'll usually find tracks here. And now because I have a bridge, and the creek it's an older creek. It's down probably about, I'm gonna guess 4 feet. So you got a 4-foot ridge going down into the creek. A little bit hard for the animals to cross. There are some sections that are a little bit shallower, and that's usually where they get their drinks from. But this is an area where it's a little bit deeper. It's 3 to 4 feet, depending on where you are. And so I have a bridge going across it. And all these tracks are coming together, and they're crossing the bridge. I gave them an easy way to cross this little creek. And what I'm finding here right now, besides my dog's tracks, because she already went on ahead of me, I'm also finding some coyote tracks and some deer tracks. So they're going across the bridge, they're congregating together. So look around water sources and you'll seem to find more tracks. Also look around places where there's food sources or shelter. That's another way to determine, where the tracks are going to be. Now, this deer, I can actually tell what direction the deer was headed in. The deer was headed going same direction I'm going in, so I'm headed west right now on the trail, and the deer was headed west as well. I can tell that because the thin part of the hoof is always in the front, so it's almost like it's pointing in the direction. Now, if the tracks were a little clearer, I could probably tell whether it's male or female. You can tell by the width of the rear hips, but these are not good tracks. Looks like there was more than one deer that came through here. Now, here's something interesting I want to talk about is, when was this deer here? This is what I'm talking about, exploring the tracks. What was this deer doing? The coyote, I could tell he was just slowly walking along. I could tell it's not my dog tracks, it was coyote tracks. And a couple of clues for me. Number one, my dogs usually don't come into the woods unless I'm in here with them. They stay out in the yard. So I'm going to see more dog tracks up in the yard. So these are more than likely coyote tracks. And besides that, with the melting today, it's a little bit warmer today. We had a little bit of a thaw. With the melting, it makes the tracks a little bit bigger. So these are pretty big coyote tracks. If I knew there were wolves in the area, I'd say, oh, these are wolf, but no, we don't have wolves around here, so I know they're coyote. I know they're not fox. Fox put 1 foot in front of the other, nice straight line. So I know these are coyote because they are side to side from each other. And these are also direct register. In other words, the back foot goes right into the front foot. Fox are the same way, back foot into the front foot. So what I mean by that is it only looks like it's 2 feet walking along, but it is 4, because we know coyotes have 4 feet. Whereas a dog is not direct register. It'll be 1 foot. The rear foot will land right next to where the front foot was. So you're actually seeing 2 tracks next to each other. This I know is a coyote. Now the deer, back to the deer, judging by the melt of the snow, these are a little bit bigger. I mean, we're in the woods, so we're not getting as much sunshine. So these tracks, the deer, I'm going to move along here, see if we find any other, but because of the size of them, and I know how much it melted, but like I said, we don't get a lot of snow here, we don't get a lot of sunshine here, so they're not melting as quick as if they would in the field, but it has been warm today, so they do have a little bit of melt. But they're not huge. Like the coyote tracks got very big. So I'm guessing the coyote came through last night, the deer came through this morning. So you have to also think about the animal. Okay, like I said, I knew it wasn't a wolf because we don't have wolves around here. So think about what animals in your area make dog-like tracks. Okay, could be a dog, could be a coyote, could be a fox, could be a wolf. You know, what animals are in your area though? My area, I don't have wolves. Could be any of the other ones. I know my neighbor doesn't have dogs, so I know it would have been one of my dogs, but my dogs don't go in the woods. I mean, could have been. I mean, they sometimes will come without me. Most of the time, they're only in the woods when I'm in the woods. Sorry, a little bit of trail maintenance on the way. Okay, so as I'm going along here on the trail, you know, I'm looking, following the tracks, seeing where they're going. The deer, I made it easy for these guys. I've got a trail cleared through the woods, so it makes it easy for them to come through the woods. So they usually follow my trail right along. Unfortunately, I lost the tracks. The snow melted off of this part of the trail, so I don't see any tracks here. And the ground is still frozen. I mean, it is still early spring, late winter, so the ground is still frozen here. So they're not sinking into the mud. There are some wet spots from the melt of the snow. That's a little softer, and that's another place where I might find some tracks. But right now, I gotta slow down and check this area out. It's kind of muddy here. Might see some tracks, and I'm not seeing any. Nope. And my dog just went running through this area, so you'd think I would have seen some tracks here, but I don't. Okay, nothing here. I'm gonna head towards the snow, see if there's anything else in the snow here. And I'm not seeing any. Up here's some more dog-like tracks. Now these, I'm guessing, were probably from yesterday. Now, these are probably from yesterday. Just once again, think about what the weather's been like. Has there been any snow to fill them in? What has it been doing as far as temperature, rain, you know, sunlight? Has it been cloudy? All of these factors are going to change the snow. It's going to melt it. It's going to freeze it. It's going to fill in the tracks. So you have to look at all these factors and see, you know, what the weather's been doing. That'll kind of give you a gauge on age. How old were the tracks? You know, was it yesterday or not? Now these tracks, I'm going to stop here before they disappear because I'm running out of snow again. These tracks are going right next to the trail. It looks like they're headed into the woods more here and off my trail. So he may have spotted something in the woods. These are actually fox tracks. They're a little bit smaller than the coyote tracks I saw back a little ways. So these are a little bit smaller. They're also, like I said earlier, in a direct line. So 1 foot right behind the other. That's the way a fox walks. And once again, they're direct register. The rear foot lands into the front foot's track so that they don't make as many tracks as they're walking. Fox, they're kind of like cats. They hunt like cats. Even though they're in the canine family, they hunt like cats. What I mean by that is they sneak up on their prey. And so they walk very daintily, very quietly, and that nice slow path through the woods. And I stopped here at this tree because along with seeing what wildlife is in your yard, you know, by looking at the tracks, you can also see what wildlife is in your yard by looking at the trees. Now I've got an old dead tree in front of me. It's a white pine, died many years ago. And I haven't been in my woods in a little while. The snow's been a little bit deep, so I haven't been out here much, but seeing a lot of new stuff. And there's some holes in this tree that I'm standing in front of. So the woodpeckers have been here. And looking at the size of the hole and the shape of the hole, I'm gonna guess that it was probably a hairy woodpecker that's been after something. And I'm seeing some pretty yellowish, bright yellowish wood. So they're fairly fresh in this area, and I can also see some wood chips on the ground. But I also have 3 holes lower on the tree, 4 holes lower on the tree that are probably older. And I say that because it's all white around it and there's white streaks coming down off of it. So the sap was dripping out of these holes, and it's just turned to this white creamy substance on the way out. And since it hasn't been warm enough yet for any sap to flow, plus this tree has been dead for several years, so there wouldn't even be sap in this tree. Of course, there is bark on this section, but yeah, it's been dead for a few years. So I'm guessing those are very old holes, and they're on the opposite side of the newer ones, and there's no little bark shavings on the ground, wood shavings on the ground. And we're going to continue a little bit further down the trail. I really encourage you to get out and enjoy the weather and enjoy your own yard. I mean, maybe you don't have 12 acres to walk on like I do, but you know, even the smallest yards, there's so much to explore out there. So, I mean, tracking can be done anywhere. Go to a nature center, go to a local park. But I always encourage people, explore your own backyards. A lot of times we don't even know what's in our own yard. So it's kind of fun to explore all these new things in their yards. Okay, so I'm coming to another area where my one trail meets the other trail. And this trail actually goes along the back of my property. It actually goes over to my neighbor's property. And we kind of keep it open. He uses it when he's walking. I allow him to, walk across my property, and when he wants to go for a walk, even though he has more acreage than I do. Most of his is wooded, so he likes to go through the back of my property once in a while, and I give him permission, so we keep this open. And it's usually pretty muddy back here, and today is no exception. The ground is still a little frozen, but I can see some tracks in the mud, in the frozen dirt. There are some dog tracks that I see. My dog, I don't know where she went to, so she's way ahead of me now exploring. But she always stays on the trails. Oh, here's an interesting track I'm going to talk about, even though it's from my dog. I know that she just came through here. This is a really fresh track, but it's kind of muddy here, and she must have just, been running through here. She's a young dog. She's only a year old, and she's full of energy. So she came running through this section. I can tell because the footprints are further apart. So she wasn't just walking through here, she was running. And there's 2 footprints right here where I'm standing, where it's a little bit softer, it's a little bit muddier and wetter, and I can see how she slipped in the mud. So she was running pretty good, and she lost her footing here because the track is elongated. So it's longer than the other tracks where she could dig her foot in and push off. But this one, she slipped, so her foot slid along the ground, and it left that track. Once again, the story. What was she doing? What was she after? So she's just having fun. But if it was a coyote or a fox track that I saw, I would assume that they were probably out hunting, spotted something, and went after it. So now I'm coming out into my field, out of the woods. I can feel the warmth of the sun, and I've got some tracks here, deer tracks. They came right along the back of the field. They usually do. They go from my neighbor's property and go up along the trail that goes along the back. And I have a really old pond in the back of my property, so the deer love it. They can just go right up to it and drink out of it. It's so full of plants. It's overgrown. It's an old farm pond. This used to be cow pasture at one time, and so they used this pond back here for the cows. And when I bought the property, I just left it. I didn't, dredge it out or anything. We built a whole new pond up towards the front of the property. and we left this one for the wildlife. So this is kind of my wildlife pond. So I get a lot of deer tracks back here, a lot of other animals, because they like going to this pond and digging through the muck to get at the water. But these deer tracks, they look fairly fresh. I'm going to guess it may have been the same deer from this morning. We get quite a few deer on the property. So he was just following, and actually this is a different deer. This is a different deer because the other one was following me, or I was following it, I should say. We were both heading in the same direction. This one, looking at the track, headed in the opposite direction. So this guy was headed down towards the woods. So he was probably here this morning, though, by the impressions of the track going in towards the woods. So we do get a lot of different tracks here. I'm hoping once I get up into the field here a little bit around the pond, I usually get some rabbit tracks. So I'm going to look at the patches of snow here. Now the interesting thing, rabbit tracks look very similar to squirrel tracks. I don't get a lot of squirrels on my property. It's the weirdest thing. I do get red squirrels every once in a while coming up by my bird feeders, but I don't get gray squirrels on my property. I get all these woods, but most of them are pines in the back. Up towards the front I do have some cherry and some maple and some other hardwoods, but I don't get the squirrels. They just don't seem to like the trees there. Not enough food for them. But I do get red squirrels. Now, back to the tracks of these guys. They look very similar. They're kind of in a triangle shape. So the back feet, which are a little bit longer than the front feet, they will be a little bit wider than the front feet. So all 4 feet landing on the ground, they form a triangle shape. How do you know which is which? Well, the way you can tell, and there's a couple of ways. Where were they going to? Where were they coming from? If they're going from a bush to another bush, then you're talking rabbit. Rabbits don't climb trees, so you're talking rabbit, bush to bush. If it was from tree to tree, you're talking squirrel. From tree to tree, squirrel. From bush to bush, rabbit. I do have some other tracks here, and if you're just walking along, you say, oh, those aren't tracks, they're just indentations in the snow. They are older tracks, much older. We had quite a bit of wind coming through the other day, and that wind came through when it was still cold. Like I said, we're going through a brief warm spell this week, but it was still cold, below freezing. We had some snow and we had some wind. So it was blowing the snow across. So it actually buried a lot of the tracks. And these tracks here, I can see because the sun is low in the sky. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Sun is getting low in the sky. It's forming a lot of shadows. And I can see in the snow that these shadows are going across the snow. And that tells me they're tracks. Now, because they're covered in snow, hard to tell. I know they're not fox because they're not in a straight line. They're too close together to be, well, maybe not. Maybe they are deer. Okay, it could be a deer or it could be a coyote. But these tracks, let's see, it was 2 days ago we had all that wind, all the snow coming down. So I'm going to guess it was sometime before that. So I can get a general timeline. I can't get exact. And here's some more on the other side. And these are smaller. These are smaller tracks. So I'm going to guess that this was probably coyote. They're also going under some bushes. Yeah, these are going under bushes. Could have been skunk. Skunks are starting to, come out of their dens and be more active too. But no, they're not that close together. So I'm going to say these are probably coyote. And like I was saying, they're going under a bush. The branches of the bush don't look disturbed. There's actually another plant next to it that's leaning into the bush, and none of it looks disturbed. So if it was a deer, it would have disturbed and pushed aside some of those branches, but it didn't. So yeah, this was more than likely a shorter animal by the height. Now, yeah, I'm seeing we have some drifting back here. I've got a line of trees in the back of the property here along my trail, and so there's some deeper snow here, and I'm seeing some smaller tracks. And it wasn't my dog, so he's too heavy, he would have sunk right in. Smaller tracks going right along the top of the drift. And okay, I'm seeing in the shadows, yeah, I'm seeing some couple of really good tracks. So these are probably from this morning. Yeah, those are really good tracks. One right in front of another. We've got fox right here. So we had a fox walking along. They're lightweight, so he can stand. I'm gonna go up to the, yeah, I sink in. So my weight's sinking in. I'm sure my dog's weight would sink in. So it must have been a much lighter animal, so I am going to guess that it was probably a fox. What was he doing? Well, he was probably just out for a walk looking for some food, seeing what's out there. Oh, there's a disturbance in the snow over there. I'm going to take a look. Let's go over and see what we have over here. Oh yeah, we've got a disturbance in the snow. It actually, someone was out hunting last night. Yeah, we got, it looks like streaks, wide streaks going through the snow. Yeah, and there's a spot, I don't see any blood, but there's a spot in the snow, puncture marks through the snow. We had it looks like from the size, I'm going to guess probably an owl or a hawk. I mean, these are some pretty wide wings. And yeah, it was either an owl or a hawk. Pretty fresh. I'm going to guess probably this morning. May have been last night if it was an owl. I'm not seeing any blood, so it was a quick, clean kill if they got it or they missed, one or the other. Not sure which. That's pretty cool. Don't get to see those very often. Yeah, every once in a while we have barred owls here. We have great horned owls, and of course we do get a lot of red tails. I did see a Cooper's hawk at my feeders the other day, but the Cooper's hawk that would be a smaller. I don't know. Yeah, probably a smaller wingspan. This is pretty wide, so I'm going to guess either a red tail or a barred or a great horned owl. We do hear the bards every once in a while. And we'll just walk along this trail, see what else we can see here. This area I'm not seeing a lot. Like I said, a lot of the snow is melted in the field. I have quite a few patches though. I would guess probably 50-50 in my field because I let my field just kind of grow. My neighbor's field, they hay theirs, so it doesn't have the protection from the sun that mine does, the shadows. So theirs is like 5% snow. Mine is 50-50. And I'd even say it's probably more like probably 75% snow in my field. Oh, looks like I have a casualty on the birdhouse. I have to replace a post this year before nesting season. Okay, now coming across the trail, I do have an area that is well disturbed, and I'm seeing lots of deer tracks going through. I'm gonna guess just by the number of tracks and the lines, going across the width of the path. Let's see, I'm gonna guess probably about 4 or 5 deer came through here. So they came from my neighbor's upper field and across my path here and down into my field. They do sometimes, sleep in our field, but a lot of times, they'll come over to our field because we have all this taller grasses. Even though it's dead, we have the taller grasses in our field for them to eat, to munch on. And I've got some plants that have some berries on them if they want that. And a lot of variety of food. Got a crow flying over. I don't know if you can hear him. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we have some bunny tracks, finally. Usually I see them back here. I knew we'd come across them eventually. So we do have some rabbit tracks. They came right across the trail. It's funny, they don't seem to follow the trails like some of the larger animals because they can get through the grasses, the weeds much easier than the larger animals. They take advantage of the trail I cut. So much easier for them to just walk along my trail. So this rabbit was headed towards my field from my neighbors. And I know it wasn't a squirrel. Like I said, we don't usually get squirrels here. But the squirrels usually will be closer to the woods. Now I'm like halfway between two sets of woods. And the closest woods is about, I'm going to say 300 feet away. Probably about 300 feet away. So, this was, and also I'm seeing that he's, headed to a clump of grasses. So yeah, from bush to bush, it's a rabbit. So we have rabbit track. Here goes Rivy again. She must have found something to keep her occupied and back for a while. She caught up to me. Now, this trail has a lot of ruts in it, so we do get some puddles of water as whenever the snow melts in the spring. So I often find a lot of tracks along here as well. Now, if you're in a park and they allow dogs, you're probably going to see a lot of dog tracks. Look for, them walking along the same path that human footprints go along, and then definitely they're a dog, especially if the owners kept them on a leash, which most parks, they require that. Yeah, I've got some puddles here. I'm not seeing a lot of tracks around them though. Usually I get a lot of tracks around these puddles because it's a nice place for the animals to drink. Okay, I'm getting closer to my house now, so I'm finding a lot of tracks here. But I already know these are dog tracks. Yeah, this is where my dogs, go out and explore all the time. Right around the house. They're good dogs. They just stick around the house all the time. But if I look at these dog tracks, I know they're probably 99% dog tracks. When I look at them, I can actually tell when they were made. Okay, because the sun's beating down right now. It's melting a bunch of the tracks. And so as they melt, it hits the grass underneath. And the grass, it creates heat because it's dark color. It's absorbing the heat from the sun, which makes that area heat up quicker. And so the grass patch gets very big. So the bigger the patch, the older it is, the older the tracks. And then she just ran through here, so I'm seeing her smaller tracks that haven't expanded from the sun yet. And there's a couple of spots I want to visit before we head on in. The first one, because I was noticing this, I'm headed down to my pond here, and I can see there's tracks actually going across the ice. Now I'm at the edge of the pond. Oh yeah, I'm actually standing on the pond, so the ice is still pretty thick. I'm not going out too far, I don't want to fall through. My dog will not rescue me, but I'm right along the edge of the pond. And I'm jumping up and down. Yeah, it's pretty heavy ice, but right underneath my feet, there's a set of tracks that go right across the middle of the pond. And I can actually see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trails going right across the pond in different directions. So they know it's frozen over, so the coyotes, the fox, they'll use it. The one going across the distance, the widest distance of the pond, are actually fox tracks because they're one right behind the other. And then all the rest look like coyote tracks because they're next to each other. Each track is next to each other. So I can tell just by, and once again, it's been melting. So the ice has been melting. The tracks are, not perfect, but it's kind of interesting to see the little indentations going across. And the way the ice is melting actually makes them more visible. Plus, once again, low sunlight. The sun is low on the horizon, so it is causing that shadow across the tracks. And headed back up to the house here. Most of the snow is melted around the bird feeders, but I often like to look around the bird feeders because you can usually find some tracks from birds too. Hey, birds have feet, they make tracks. They're kind of interesting tracks. They kind of look like a peace sign without the circle around them. So you have the three front feet, toes, sorry. You have the 3 front toes and the 1 back toe. And all of those, I can see quite a few around the feeder. There's a little patch of snow here. And there's all these little footprints. And let me check around this feeder. Yeah, same thing. Lots of footprints. Some are big, some are small. You can just kind of guess what species you have there. But obviously, a lot of these are ground feeders, so the seed that drops out of the feeders onto the ground, these guys are the cleanup crew. Yeah, they're cleaning them up. So, back at my house now, we did a nice hike around my trails on the property, right in my own backyard, and all these tracks. So we've had quite a few wild animals in the yard on my property the past week, or I'm sure we've had more before that and after that, but we've had quite a few. So anyhow, we're back. So that's basically what tracking's all about. I really encourage you, get out, check out the tracks, and don't just try to figure out who made the tracks. Try to figure out, the story behind the tracks. Where were they going? What were they doing? I mean, I've found so many interesting stories like that. The bird tracks out back, the wing marks through the snow, obviously hunting. I've seen where a fox I was at a nature center once, I saw a fox who was walking through the snow. I was following his tracks, and it was middle of winter, really cold, nothing but tracks. And this fox was walking through the snow, and all of a sudden the tracks stopped, but there was a big disturbance. And I could tell by the width and what was going on with the tracks that he was slowing down. He was stalking something at that point. And then all of a sudden, the tracks just leaped up in the air. This fox leaped up in the air, pounced on something. I'm guessing either probably a bird, because there were a lot of bird tracks around, but it could have been a rabbit. Maybe the bird tracks were there earlier. And there was blood around, so I know that he got something. And judging by the amount of feathers all over the place, I'm guessing he got a bird. It's amazing what the stories of these tracks can tell. So that's about all I have to say about tracking for today. I hope you enjoyed our hike around my property and seeing all the different tracks out there and all the animals that we have. If you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe and visit my website, my Instagram page. I always post some pictures of my hikes and such on there. Facebook page as well. My Instagram is the Nature Wanderer _ in between each word. My website is Nature Wanderer. There's no the on there. naturewanderer.org. and my Facebook is The Nature Wanderer. So check them out, and you can also support the podcast by becoming a patron on my Patreon page. My Patreon page, you get extras like you can get to see more videos, pictures. I have some classes on there, and I'm always adding more. So some videos on different learnings that I'm teaching. You can enjoy those. Also, you can support me and the podcast by buying some merch. Yeah, I've got some t-shirts, water bottles, backpacks, all sorts of things that you can buy. The link is on my website, again, naturewanderer.org. There's a link to the store, and you can support the podcast in that way. So also the links are in the show notes as well. I always put them there. So I hope you enjoyed yourself and get out and explore nature. So keep exploring nature. Have a great day.